Well, good evening and welcome everyone to Blue Sunday on this, what are we, the 22nd, I think it is, of May. Steve Khatib and Vince Loccisano joining you for yet another show. And on the back of Carlton's 8th victory for the season so far. Now, we only won 8 games in the whole of 2021. So we've only taken 10 rounds to match that. Somehow I can't see us losing the next 12. So I think it's going to be a fair improvement on last year. So, Steve, welcome. And good to be here on yet another, well, I guess on the back of another fantastic victory. We did say last week that it was a big test. And we passed that test. It's fair to say.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we did pass the test. It was a good performance, and the club's continued in winning ways.
You know the interesting thing about that victory? We only won the one quarter. We actually got outscored in the other 3 quarters, but such a scintillating quarter that it was, the second quarter, 9 goals to 3, that it gave us enough of a buffer, if you like, to stave off the inevitable Sydney comeback. And I guess we were a bit lucky. If you notice in that last quarter, when they got to within 9 points, I think it was Nick Newman that might have fumbled a bit in the back line. It was basically close enough to full back, and he did have an opportunity or two to get rid of it, and he ended up being tackled, and the umpire just said play on. And I thought at the time, he's gone here. He's going to get hold of the ball. And if that decision had been paid, well, it would have made, assuming that the Sydney player would have kicked the goal from that point blank range there at full forward, it would have made it only a 2-point game at that stage. It could have been a different result. But anyway, I guess the umpiring was on our side on that occasion and helped us to stave off that late charge, if you like, and then we steadied to kick another goal. And when Zach Fisher kicked that last one, it sort of meant game over, I'd say.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's the theme, right? We've probably had 3 games this year that quite easily, we could have lost and we won. And last year was probably the opposite scenario. So, look, doing what we have to do to win. I mean, look, it's a good win. But let's be honest, we relied a lot on Curnow. Understandably, because Mackay was not playing, but at the same time, we did rely a lot on him.
And what a great game he played too. I mean,
absolutely,
his second quarter was something to behold. Really, I mean,
they didn't have a player.
Quarter.
They didn't have a player to match him.
No,
that was probably. And probably the pressure on the ball wasn't there, so the midfield, the ball was coming in pretty, a dream for a forward, right? So there was that.
I mean, that would have to be the most exciting football we've seen Carlton play, that second quarter, for probably since the days of the late 90s and early 2000s. I reckon.
It was a hard. It was under the roof, so it's a fast deck, if you like, and all the advantage to quick ball movement and the way we played. Certainly got the ball out of the middle, clearance after clearance. They were second to it. They were reactive, and there was nothing Longmire could really do in that period. But again, it's only one quarter.
Well, one thing that they did do is they kicked 3 goals. In addition to their 4 goals in the first quarter, and they were 7 goals straight at half time. So that sort of kept them in the game a little bit. If it wasn't for that accuracy, they would have been completely gone, I reckon, at half time.
McDonald did very well for them. I thought he's going to be a really good player.
Yeah.
He was very good.
But yet again, we saw Carlton with a 38-point lead get whittled down to 8 points with still about 6 minutes to go, or thereabouts in the last quarter. So, as I said, it could have resulted in heartbreak. But thankfully, I guess for Carlton supporters, we staved it off and got a bit lucky with that umpiring decision on
I
Newman,
mean,
and ran away with it in the end by 15 points.
There's two ways you can look at it. You could say that we don't win a quarter by 1 or 2 goals, and then another quarter by 1 or 2 goals, et cetera, et cetera. We tend to win it by 7 or 8 goals or 6 goals, and then lose the other quarters. In a perfect world, we'd like that linear progression where we're, winning by 1 or 2 goals each quarter. That would be great.
Yeah,
but it's not working that way.
Well, I think modern football, I mean, each team tends to have their opportunity to sort of get a bit of momentum, don't they? I mean, we very rarely see games now where it's, one team building on their lead every single quarter. It doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. We tend to just do it in a more of a chunk, don't we?
Yeah,
one
we do.
quarter only. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, thankfully, there've been so many games where we've only had the 1 or 2 quarters that we've won, and it's been good enough to win the game. Thankfully, we're actually piling on the goals during those quarters where we're dominating, and I think that's what's happening, is that we're getting consecutive goals quite a lot. In that second quarter, I think we kicked 5 goals before they kicked one, and of course we kicked the last goal of the first quarter.
Yeah. This all starts from the centre.
Of course it does.
All of it. That's the key, right? As good as the forwards are in converting, it's all starting from there, and that's really the strength.
And I've got to say a big mention to Tom DeConning. I thought he did a marvellous job in the ruck up against the 2 Sydney Swans ruckmen, Tom Hickey and Laddams there, the ex-Port Adelaide player who's gone over to Sydney this year. I think he did a really admirable job. And that last quarter, he clunked about 4 marks that I could recall. Really good contested marks on the run. And I can't speak highly enough of his game on Friday night.
Yeah, 5 contested marks, as Peter Vlahos has just said. So it's pretty good, especially for still a player that's learning his craft.
Hello to Brandon Bevilacqua. If you can't tell that's an Italian surname, he's automatically said buonasera. Good evening to you too, Brandon. What has he said? Dow has to come in for Carroll, right? I think the young man needs a spell. Well, maybe. For some reason, they have been very reluctant to put Paddy Dow into this team. Not sure that it's going to be Dow, because they're not exactly like for like, are they? I mean, Carroll's probably more of a half-forward flank type player. Maybe Carroll needs a rest. I don't know. But he's played pretty well for his first 3 games. I'm not sure. It might be Jack Martin if he's ready to come back, because he's probably more of a half-forward flanker than what young Jack Carroll is. Would you make any changes to the side that you saw on Friday night if all 23 players were available? I'm not sure of any injuries that came out of it.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't see any other than Doherty copping a big whack from Josh Kennedy, who then proceeded to tear his own hamstring in the process.
Yeah, it depends. Are you talking reputation or actual team balance, right? Because, I mean, on reputation, we do know that probably players 18 to 22 aren't exactly world beaters, are they? Let's be honest.
They're not, but I think that they're doing their job. I mean, even Cottrell comes on and he adds a bit of spark. He's like a working man's Mitch Robinson, and that's probably putting Mitch Robinson up in the elite category. I don't know if Mitch Robinson's elite, but he sort of comes on and does his thing. He adds a bit of spark. He's a pretty good kick. I think he's doing enough to hold his spot in the side, Cottrell, at the moment. They rested Nunes for that game on Friday night, which was interesting. They're the types of players that are always going to be spoken about week to week as far as, do you play them, don't you play them? Do you keep them in the team, or do you drop them back to the VFL?
Yeah, this is the thing,
in
right?
favour of injured players that are coming
as
back.
soon as they make a mistake or have a bad game,
Yeah.
they're much maligned, aren't they? That's the reality.
Yeah. They're certainly not. Well, it's almost like they're not given any forgiveness if they make a mistake.
Well, no.
Whereas if Paddy Cripps has a clanger or Sam Walsh has a clanger,
he's got credits in the bank.
So what?
Yeah,
big deal.
Yeah.
They've got that many credits in the bank that they're not going to get dropped, are they?
No.
So those fringe players are important in any team, but it's good to see that we've really got the depth this year to cover those injuries. One thing I was very concerned about, as you know, the last 2 or 3 weeks I've been talking about it, as the injuries have continued to be racked up. I mean, Zach Williams, was an omission out of the side due to injury this week. We've seen Harry Mackay go out for many weeks, Mitch McGovern. We got the news during the week that Oscar McDonald will not be back this year. He will effectively have to sit out the rest of the season with that back injury. So I've always felt that, at some point the dam wall's going to break, but gee, we've managed to cover those injuries pretty well.
Yeah, I think it's helped. Timing has worked well. Charlie's had a good game when Harry's been out, right? But if he didn't.
But the thinking was at the time that that Charlie needs Harry to be there to sort of provide a bit of a foil for him. And
he's a second banana.
But Charlie has now proven that on his own he can still perform at a very high level and be relied upon to kick a bag of goals. He really has gone the next level, I think, Charlie.
Absolutely. No,
the
I
bottom
agree.
6 will win you a flag from Glenn O'Donnell. I agree with you, Glenn. I think it's that bottom 6 that has to be up to a certain standard in order to win a flag, because it's often been seen in grand finals in the past where the losing side has had their fair share of star players, but it's that last 6 that, make mistakes or can let you down or, are not good enough to hold their opponents. And you're right. I think it's almost Vince, like you're only as good as your worst, your 22nd or 23rd on the field.
Think that comment will get the Ballantyne's chocolates, the Patra orange juice, the Pataki ham. That is the comment of the day, or the night, or the week, or whatever you want to say. Glenn, if we were to give away prizes, you'd get the Tosca luggage as well.
And for those of you who think that we've gone absolutely mad, Steve's just quoting all the prizes that they used to give away on a show called World of Sport back in the 70s and 80s. Was it around in the 90s? I'm not sure that it was around in the 90s.
Late 80s it stopped.
Sunday 80s, was it?
Sunday 12 o'clock. I remember Lou Richards had the Tosca luggage, the Patra orange juice, the Ballantyne's
chocolate. So you mean
chocolate.
when Channel 7 lost the TV rights at the end of 1986, you reckon the World of Sport stopped?
There you go. Sorry, it was probably around that time.
Because Lou Richards then went to Channel 9, I remember that.
Yeah.
And I think that was the end, effectively, of World of Sport, wasn't it?
And the wood chop and all the other segments and the handball. Well,
so those of you who don't know what we're talking about, you had to have been alive 36 years ago. Anyway, yes, the Patra orange juice, the Ballantyne's chocolates go to you, Glenn O'Donnell. They're in the mail. All right. And by the way, if anyone else wants to come on and make a comment, ask us a question, give us your opinion, put in your 2 bobs worth, by all means do that on our Facebook page in the blue corner, or join us on our YouTube page of the same name, in the blue corner, and the show is being broadcast live there as we speak. All right.
Glenn's just given us a history lesson when Christopher Skase
took over Channel 7. Yeah,
was that when he owned the Brisbane Bears? I think it was.
That's right. Yeah, I think it was.
He took the Brisbane Bears as well.
No, I think he might have done that a little bit later, funnily enough. Anyway, never mind. So where are we?
Sorry, I sidetracked you going down memory lane. Memory lane. Yeah.
Anyway, well, let's just recap the game there, shall we? Well, for starters, it was a great victory to the Blues. 15-12, 102. To the Sydney Swans, 13-9, 87. There was only a 1-point lead to Sydney at quarter time. Then with our 9-3 to 3 goals straight in the second quarter, we had a 38-point lead at halftime. That got whittled back to only 17 points at three-quarter time, where the Sydney Swans kicked 5-4 to our 2-1 in the third quarter. And I think a few Carlton supporters were starting to get a little bit shaky in the knees at that stage. But, of course, in that last quarter, they did outscore us, but only by a couple of points. 1-5 they kicked, very inaccurate, to our 1-3. And so in the end, 17 points got reduced to 15 by the final siren. But as we know, it got down to 8 points at one stage, with still about 6 minutes left on the clock. And I remember watching the replay of the game and seeing some of the faces in the crowd at that point. And let me tell you, there were a lot of fingers in mouths at that stage biting their nails were worried about us possibly losing the game after being so dominant in that second quarter. What's this from Peter Vlahos? Good to see you, Peter. Similar to round 2 against the Dogs. Yeah, a little bit like that. And look, they're good opponents. The thing that we have to acknowledge here is that Sydney are a finals team. They played finals last year. You're likely to play finals again this year, you would think. They're a quality opponent. Did it make a bit of a difference that we were playing in Melbourne in front of our own home crowd? It was a pretty big crowd. I think there were 45,000, wasn't there, roughly? I think it got pretty close to a record home and away crowd for a Carlton-Sydney game or a Carlton-Swans game. And, I think that would have made a lot of difference. I think even the players acknowledged that, the crowd noise at some points in time really did help to inspire them.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a full house. Would have been interesting if that game was at the MCG. But anyway,
or at the SCG for that matter. Another comment up here, Goz Margetta. Good evening, Goz. I just wish you'd be a bit more passionate for a change. In all seriousness, why? There's a segment on 3RW on a Saturday morning, Goz. Maybe you should go on that. It's called YOY. It's called, I think it's called YOY, something like that. Does Dow not get a seniors consistent game these days? I think what he means is, doesn't he get a seniors game consistently?
Yeah.
Is there something amiss here? I realise our midfield is stacked, but seriously. Well, I think that you've knocked it on the head. Our midfield is stacked with class and quality players. And clearly Michael Voss is happy with that mix in there at the moment. And even though Dow is playing pretty good football in the VFL, I think he played pretty well today, wasn't it? I think there was a game at Icon Park.
Yeah,
which I think the VFL team lost by 10 points to Sandringham. But Paddy Dow would have been one of the best players on the ground again.
Yeah, he was.
And I think he might have kicked a goal or two. So, look, who knows? If all he's got to do is consistently play well in the VFL and be in those best 3 or 4 players every week, and sooner or later, you would think that either through injury or suspension or because players need to be rested or whatever the case may be, he will get his chance.
Or if he doesn't,
you can't keep.
Or if he doesn't, there's something.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, there's something politically going on in the background.
I'll tell you one thing: if he keeps for the Carlton VFL team every week, and he doesn't get a game before the end of the year, you can bet your life that there will be teams coming for him at the end of the year and knocking on his door to say, "Hey, come over and play with us. We'll give you a game every week."
And it would
That's all he's got to do.
And it would be stupid of Carlton not to play him, because his currency would then drop, because he'd be playing in the VFL and they won't get what they want for him. And very different to a player that's playing seniors.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. I was just saying, if a player's playing seniors, they're worth a bit more from a trade perspective than a player that's languishing in the VFL.
Yeah. I heard on the grapevine, I must have missed it if it was in the media, but I heard that Paddy Dow had been given another year's contract. Is that correct?
Not sure.
If you're not sure, well, then can I ask our listeners out there, or our viewers, I should say, to write in now if you do know anything about that. I heard from someone, I think it was yesterday, that told me, Paddy Dow's been given another 12 months, and the reason is so that we don't have a situation where if we do end up losing him, that we get nothing for him, because he's basically at the end of his contract at the end of this year.
Yeah.
So to give him another 12 months basically assures us of getting something for him if he happens to leave.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people have come through and they've said, yes, they've confirmed. You're right, Vince.
Right, okay.
Now, if you want
I didn't see anything about it in the media or even social media.
If those people want to take the Patra orange juice and Tosca luggage off our previous winner, how much money did he sign for?
I don't know.
I don't know if they'll know that, but anyway.
Well, put it this way.
I don't think it would be big money, would it?
No, but at the same time, Paddy Dow probably thinks, oh, well, if no one wants me, at least I've got another year.
Yeah.
You know, I think at some point he will be given his opportunity. I'm very confident that at some point, if he keeps playing to that standard, he will get his opportunity. He hasn't played in the first 10 rounds at all. I think he might have been a medical sub once or twice, but he never got on the ground. So, yeah, I just think at some point the circumstances will pan out that he gets his chance. And, you know, if he plays well, then he should keep his spot in the side. But I think the midfield mix at the moment with the addition of Hewitt and Chera has basically ruled him out so far. Now, his draft twin, if you like, Lockie O'Brien, because he went at pick 10, I think it was.
Pick 4.
When, no, he's number 4.
No, I thought he was. Sorry, you're right. He was.
I think it was pick 10, and Paddy Dow was pick 3. Again, if anyone can confirm that,
I thought Paddy was pick 2. Mad. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. Anyway.
No, I think you'll find Paddy Dow was pick 3. But anyway, they were both in the top 10 in the draft.
Yes.
Of that same year. Now, Lockie is getting his opportunity, and that's because he's doing enough on his wing to continue justifying his position. We've been weak in the wings over the last few years. I still don't think it's 100% what we want it to be, but he's doing enough to hold his position, and he's seems to be given the ball as a bit of a get-out kick. When we need to clear the area, he's often the one that they give the ball to, and he puts it on that left boot and he boots it out of the area, and that seems to be part of his role. So he's obviously doing that pretty well, and he's continuing to play senior football, whereas Paddy Dow, not getting his chance yet. But anyway, I think we've done that one to death. So, Goz, don't give up hope. I think you'll find Paddy Dow will get his chance at some point, as long as he keeps playing well in the VFL. All right. Now, who did you think were the top 3 players on the ground, Steve? Let me get you 3, 2, 1.
Oh, probably Curnow.
Curnow 3?
Yeah, have to be.
Yeah.
I think you'd have to say Kern. I'm just trying to think. It's not easy. DeConning was good.
Yeah, very good. He got 23 hitouts, DeConning.
Yeah.
As opposed to the Sydney players, Hickey, a lot more experienced. Hickey got 14 and Laddam's got 10. And DeConning got 23, which is almost as many as those two combined.
Yeah, probably DeConning.
Stephen Silvani got 5. Jack Silvani got 5. And Paddy Cripps got 3. So we end up winning the hitouts by 7.
Yeah, I'd probably say, for one vote, you could raffle it. There was a lot of contributors. Well,
for what it's worth, I thought for 4 quarters, don't get me wrong, Charlie Curnow, outstanding, 6 goals. you could attribute a lot of our win to his contribution. But I think his second quarter was particularly outstanding. He still did well at the rest of the game, but not quite as dominant in those other 3 quarters. I thought for 4 quarters, stopping the most dangerous player on the ground, I gave it to Wiedering. He got my 3 votes. I thought he was absolutely superb. And, essentially kept Buddy Franklin to what? A goal or 2, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think 2 goals.
2 goals, I think he
and
kicked.
to keep Franklin to 2 goals on a surface like that, where they were getting their fair bit of the ball for a large chunk of the game, I thought Wiedering did an outstanding job. I gave him my 3 votes. I gave Charlie Curnow my 2. And I thought, again, DeConning's last quarter, outstanding, but for sheer persistence right through the whole game, and just constantly getting the ball, I thought Sam Walsh, 34 possessions, and I could have given it to Hewitt with 32, but I thought that Walsh and Hewitt, it was a raffle between the 2 of them for my 3rd vote. But I thought Wiedering and the contributions from Wiedering and Curnow were the ones that had the most impact on the game.
Yep. That's
one for defending and one for attacking. The attacking players tend to get votes a lot more often because, we associate winning with kicking goals, but it's also about saving goals. And I thought Wiedering did that brilliantly over the 4 quarters.
He was great.
All right. Well, our next game is against Collingwood, our arch rivals. Well, they certainly were back in the bygone era. The rivalry is often spoken about now as something that has, to some extent, been diluted or dissipated. And I think one of the reasons for that is because we haven't really played Collingwood in finals at all for, guess how many years? Do you know the last time we played Collingwood in any final?
Oh, you'd have to go back to the 80s now.
Yep.
Wouldn't you?
The qualifying final of 1988, where we actually beat them. I think we might have beaten them by about 45 points that day. But
that was at VFL Park.
Was it at the MCG? No, it was at the MCG. It was a brilliant game.
I remember. Yeah.
Fantastic game. We ran away with it in the last quarter. It's pretty close up until 3/4 time. But that was 1988. That was the last time we played Collingwood in any sort of final. And in a grand final, the last time we played them was, of course, in 1981, where we beat them by 20 points after being quite significantly down at one stage in the 3rd quarter. And then, of course, we beat them in 79, and then you'd have to go back to 1970 where we beat them again. But, the rivalry through the 70s and 80s was very, very strong. Then, of course, we spoiled their party in 1992 when they had their centenary. And they did it I think it was a Wednesday night because they wanted to do it on the exact day they celebrated the centenary. So we had to actually play them 4 days. Was it 4 days? I think it was 4 days after we'd played Footscray, the Bulldogs, the previous weekend. And I remember getting done by Footscray that day. I don't know if it's because the players were saving themselves for the Collingwood game, but we actually lost, went into the Collingwood game as underdogs and absolutely smashed them and spoiled their party.
Yeah, I think, would we win by 5 or 6 goals that night? I think it was.
I can't remember the exact margin, but I do remember beating them quite comfortably. That was 1992. That was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And, of course, 5 years ago, we spoilt their party again when they had their 125th celebrations.
Yeah, that Saturday afternoon at the MCG.
That's the one.
I think we won by about 2 or 3 goals that day.
So we're pretty good at spoiling other clubs' parties. I hope we can do the same thing again when we play Essendon in about 3 weeks' time. And the way they're going, well, I don't think they'd be too confident of knocking us over based on how we're going. But you never know. Sometimes these games between two rivals can turn up an unusual result because sometimes ladder position means nothing.
That's true.
Anyway, so we're playing Collingwood next week, and guess what Collingwood did tonight in the very last match of the round?
They beat Fremantle.
They certainly did. They didn't just beat them. I mean, really, they smashed them, didn't they?
And that's away from home, right? And
80-44 at Optus Stadium in Perth. Beat them by 6 goals, almost double their score.
And Fremantle came off that uncharacteristic loss to the Gold Coast up at
last week.
Rara, yeah.
So that's 2 really bad losses in a row for the Fremantle Dockers. They would be very worried about that sort of trend at the moment.
Absolutely.
And do you know what that does to Carlton's ladder position?
Moves it up to 3rd.
Well, not only does it bring us up to 3rd, you could argue that it puts us in equal 2nd position with Brisbane, who also lost today.
Yes, to Hawthorn.
By 5 points. Can you believe what a turn-up? Those last 2 games. I think that would have stuffed up a few people's footy tips for the week. Hawthorn beating Brisbane. But look, Hawthorn do play well down there, and you can't underestimate them in Launceston.
Absolutely.
They obviously did what they had to do to beat Brisbane. And, Collingwood, obviously, they've come back to form. They're back to 5 wins and 5 losses. They're outside the 8 by 1 game, plus a bit of percentage. But we can't take them lightly next week. It's going to be a blockbuster of sorts, isn't it, next Sunday afternoon?
No, it's going to be a great game. But on that ladder position question that you raised, the percentage is probably a game differential to our boys, really, if you think about it, because we've only won all our games by skinny margins most of the time. So it's always going to be harder if you're on the equal points to overtake that team. But you're right, it's going to be a big game against Collingwood. I think it'll be a big crowd, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, you'd have to say that Carlton will go in as a pretty warm favourite, but Collingwood will have its admirers, and it could turn up anything, that particular game. I'm really looking forward to seeing the Blues and the Magpies on the MCG on a sunny afternoon, hopefully a sunny afternoon. 3:20 start. It'll be about 3 days off being winter, so it's going to be nice and crisp, you'd think. I reckon it'll be a great game.
It should be, and that's exactly the time slot that they should be playing those games. MCG afternoon.
I'll make a bet with you, Steve. Seeing they've scheduled this one, we play them twice this year. We play them again in the very last round, in round 23, which will be our 22nd game for the season, of course, because one of those rounds will be a bye. Seeing that we're playing them this coming Sunday afternoon at 3:20, I'll back it in right now that the next time we play them, it'll be a night match. And
Absolutely.
Probably a Friday night match.
Well, it's ratings, isn't it?
It's at the end of the day, ratings, isn't it?
But on that round 23, it will depend on finals calculations and teams that can and can't make the finals, supposedly. Yeah. And when they do play games. But
okay, well, I'll tell you what. I'll bet you a container of Patra orange juice.
They still sell Patra?
I don't know. I don't think so. All right. How about a box of Valentine's chocolates?
I think they're still around.
Yeah, I think they might be still around.
The after dinner mints. If you can get me the after dinner mints, they're the ones I like.
Oh yes, weren't they nice? Were they the red tulip ones?
Oh no, that was they sponsored.
Oh yeah, hang on. You're talking about the Valentine's after dinner mints.
Yeah, the mint ones. Okay. You'd have them with a coffee after dinner.
Yes, indeed. We're really reminiscing here tonight, aren't we? All right. Now, other issues in AFL circles this week.
Well, I've been complaining about it for 2 or 3 weeks. Guess what? The AFLW announced their salary cap and season.
Yes. They
and
were
everything.
watching our show last Sunday night and
Oh,
said, "Geez,
yeah.
we better do something about this. We better start providing some answers because otherwise Steve will be absolutely vicious on us next week."
If they're watching our show, something's seriously wrong with them. They must be paranoid about their brand because
Don't underestimate it, Steve.
our little offering,
Yes.
although it potentially is very different to other programs in questioning and challenging the status quo.
Yeah.
Certainly not. I don't think we're not influential enough. But anyway, back to the story. So there's been a bit of a, and this is, I'll ask you the question, Vince, and let's not talk politics if we can, but because
don't get me
where
started
are
on politics.
they going to find this money from to pay the girls more? So the average wage has gone up. The average
So what's it gone up from and to for our viewers who may not know?
Yeah, I think it's gone up around. So the base, I think the average player will be on about 55K. I don't think it was in the high 20s, so it's nearly doubled essentially. The marquee players will be in the $70,000 to $80,000 bracket, the better players. So you're looking at, I think they're in tiers, 1, 2, and 3. Where are they with all these teams
that's that's TIERS for those of you who might have thought it was TEARS. Go on.
So that's
the girls should be in tears.
Yeah. Where are they going to find that money to pay these wages? Like it's all well and good, but where's it going to come from? I'm going to ask you the question.
Well,
is it the AFL sponsoring? The clubs aren't paying for it.
No. Well, it's got to be coming out of the revenue that they get from TV rights, doesn't it?
But how are they going to get this money out of TV rights to cover that?
Well, I think they're probably going to dip into the money that they get for the men's competition to pay for the women's competition.
Black hole.
How else are they going to do it? How else are they going to do it? You're not going to get it from a sponsor or two. It's going to have to come from a pretty big revenue source.
Isn't that money allocated?
Revenue source they've got. Well, is it?
You think it would be allocated? I think every last dollar is being bled dry because of.
But they might have to reallocate. They might have to re-look at that and say, well, we now need to take off certain amounts of millions to pay for all of these female footballers.
But the players, as much as they love the Players Association and bargaining and fighting for their fellow players and so forth, they're not going to take haircuts, are they?
They might not have an option.
I watch this space, but I cannot understand where that money is going to come from to pay.
It's a good question. If anyone else thinks that they know, by all means, let us know. On our Facebook page, there's options there for you to put in your comments. Look, I don't know is the answer, but I'm only assuming that it's going to have to come out of general revenue.
The bucket.
And that's going to be mainly comprising of TV rights money. That's all I can think of. And even the TV rights deal may have to be a deal that incorporates the women's competition.
But Vince, they're only playing 10 games still. They're not playing each other once.
I know.
So which is and I'm with them. They're annoyed about that, and I would agree with that. If they're going to play it, at least play each team once. 10 games is a joke. Because
it is.
They're paid that money, yet they're only playing 10 games.
Yeah.
And that could be a potential way to build that revenue for TV up.
Yeah.
At least, you'd think.
You would, but I think it's too long for... Look, there's also a physical side to this, which has to be taken into consideration.
Because they're not fully professional. I get it. Yeah.
It's not just that they're not fully professional. I just don't think biologically most clubs would be able to sustain a team on the field that's free of injury and free of
Well, you'd need
players,
larger lists.
players
You'd need larger
actually
lists.
going to be able to go onto the field.
Yeah, you need a larger list as well, right?
Yeah,
so a men's list is 40 players or whatever it is.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, men's list is a double of what you need. You've essentially got 44 players or 40 up to 46 players on the list, and you need to come up with 22 or 23 every week, don't you? So that's what's probably going to have to happen with the women as well.
Yeah.
But where's the talent pool for this? And are you going to pay all of these players that are not really up to an acceptable standard? Are you going to pay all of them $55,000 minimum?
Well, that was my next point, right? So they've got the wages have gone up, the standard's been diluted. They're still playing 10 games. I just don't. There's something that doesn't add up. Where's it all? It doesn't. There's a lot of missing parts.
To me, it smacks of caving in to what is politically correct. Yet again. Another example of the AFL caving in because of the pressure that's placed on it by all of those people who claim that the female footballers are being discriminated against, that it's not fair, that they should be paid such, low amounts compared to the men, etc., etc. But they don't seem to take into account the marketability of that sport, the fact that it's only 10 games versus 22 that the men play, and also the revenue that it generates in advertising and all the rest of it is just not going to be anywhere near the level that the AFL men's competition does.
Let's wait and see if this new August format works.
I think that I've got to say I think that was a good move. I think from a aesthetic point of view that will work better.
Okay. So let's look at it then.
You're not having all these games in 40-degree heat and what have you.
Agree. But let's look at it also. So you're going to say, well, rather than go up against the 2020 cricket, you're now going to get up against horse racing.
Yep.
That's what you're going up against, Spring Carnival.
Yep.
Right. So that's a different. That's the competitive area now in the sporting calendar.
Well, maybe they're prepared to back themselves to go up against horse racing.
Pardon the pun.
And back themselves. Well, that's what I mean. They're prepared to, back the competition to continue to, I guess, attract media attention and supporter interest. Even though the Spring Carnival's on, because not everybody is into the Spring Carnival. Not everyone's into horse racing. Not everyone's attending Flemington just because it's on. So,
yes.
If you're up against horse racing, I think you can do that. And if you're up against a few cricket matches and even golf tournaments, you could probably do that too.
Okay.
Because I think they will be up against a few of the Australian golf tournaments, won't they?
A few of them, yeah, a few of them.
Maybe one or two.
Australia doesn't have many golf tournaments anymore of any.
Well, Australian Masters, you'd think.
Well, it's finished now. So it's all the state ones. It's all the state-based tournaments now.
Okay. So we don't have an Australian Masters or an Australian PGA and Australian Open anymore.
Australian PGA, we have Australian Open.
So the old Australian Masters at Huntingdale, the tradition continues? No longer?
No, it didn't. It stopped continuing. That's devastating. But that's gone. It. Yeah, well.
The only time I attended an Australian Masters was in 2009 when Tiger Woods came out.
Oh, yeah.
And then not only did he come out, the news came out about Tiger Woods and what he was getting up to.
Yeah, they played that at Kingston Heath that year. They started moving it around. But, yes, you're right. They
paid him about $3 million just to come out and play. And that was,
and he won.
And I think the first prize for winning it was about $250,000 or something. But they paid him $3 million just to come out.
It was amazing. The galleries you had to get. People got all sorts of vantage points in trees and all. Anyway,
Oh, yeah.
We digress. We're starting to talk about that
Well,
now.
anyway,
But
yes. Anyway, so the women's competition in that time of year from late August, I think they were talking about a 25th of August start, something like that,
Yep.
through
the bye
to
weekend,
late November, I think it is, isn't it?
Yep. That bye weekend, the men's have.
So I think you'll find that it'll be over around about just on or before the draft, the AFL draft.
Yep.
The national draft. Okay. Well, I think that timing-wise will be a good decision.
Well, I reckon they should play at least another few rounds, number one, to earn their dollars. And
how many rounds would you have in the AFLW if it was up to you?
In a perfect world, you'd play everyone once. I think that would be...
So 17 rounds?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
You think that the girls can sustain that? 17 rounds of football?
That comes to list size. It's all about money, though, right? Can they play enough players to have a big enough list to have the depth in case there are injuries to play 17 rounds to make it a proper competition, a fair competition, an equitable one?
I think the AFL is going to be reluctant to go that big, that quick. I think they're going to take an approach that says slowly, let's grow it. Okay, 10 rounds might become 12. Eventually 12 might become 15. And then eventually, yes, let's everyone play each other once and we'll have 17. But it's going to have to grow to that stage.
Yeah, but it's compromised.
Rather than just go wham.
But Vince, it's compromised, and so is the men's competition fixture, for that matter, which is a whole another story, right? But it's compromised.
Another argument again.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll wait and see what happens, but at least there's been an announcement. So,
anything else you'd like to bring up from that point of view on AFL issues?
What else?
I've got one.
You go first.
And I know this might be controversial to some people, but I just think we've gone too far with some of this acknowledgement stuff and recognition of people's contribution to the game. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we shouldn't recognise Indigenous people in football, or when we have a multicultural round, we acknowledge the various cultures that have contributed, whether it be Italian players, Greek players, whatever. But when I saw one thing on the weekend and I heard one thing on the weekend, and I thought, what is going on? This is political correctness gone crazy. North Melbourne and Melbourne yesterday. What did you notice? Who was North Melbourne playing?
Oh, the name.
Were they playing Melbourne? No, they were playing NAM or whatever the name it was. Was it NARMM or something? Yeah. I can't even remember how it's spelt. But really, do we have to go to that extent? Really? I mean, what if every team changed its name? I mean, when are you going to stop with this? What's going to appease the people that want all of this recognition? Because once you do that, then they'll want something else. It's never going to be enough. And they just keep pushing for more and more and more and more. And all of the do-gooders out there that keep pushing for this stuff, they keep, you give them a little bit and you give them an inch and they take a mile. I'm sorry, but Melbourne should not have done that, in my view. That's my opinion. You might disagree with it. Other people are entitled to their view. But this is an opinion-based show. I think that was going way too far. The other one was, I think today, was it Hawthorn? I think it's when Hawthorn beat Brisbane. I was watching a little bit of it on my phone, and I was listening to the Hawthorn song in the background as the commentators were talking, and I thought, that's not the Hawthorn theme song that I know. And it had all of the words changed into some sort of Indigenous language. And I thought, why are we going down this track? Why can't we just be happy with what we've done up until now? Acknowledging the contribution of these people, that's fine. No issue with it. But when is it ever going to be enough? And by the way, this Indigenous round doesn't just go for one round. Now it's going to go over 2 rounds and has been for a couple of years. This, what do they call it? The Sir Doug Nicholls round.
Yeah.
Why is it now over 2 rounds instead of 1?
I think that's so they can play the home team. Each team gets to host one of those.
Really?
One of those
is
matches.
it? Are you sure about that?
That's
the
my
reason. Because North Melbourne and Melbourne both played at Marvel. So they both wore an Indigenous Guernsey. So I assume they're all going to wear the same Indigenous Guernseys next week. What's the difference? That they're going to wear blue shorts versus white shorts? There's nothing Indigenous about the shorts. It's all about the tops. So whether you're playing a home game or an away game, what's the difference?
Yeah,
that's my view. What about you? Where do you sit on this issue?
Look, I see it more as a marketing thing, to be honest, Vince. And I don't want to be. I'm not belittling the actual cause itself.
How can having the name Naam on television help in marketing?
Oh, it's a story though. It's a point of difference. They're bringing attention to the fact that they've changed their name for this particular team round.
I assume that if Naam is the same name that the Aboriginal people give to Melbourne, that there'd be other names that they give to Brisbane or Sydney or Carlton or Collingwood.
I think if you're trying to bring it,
why are we doing it just with Melbourne and not with anyone else?
No. I think it's Melbourne's choice though to do that. That's what I understood. It was actually Melbourne's club choice. So because
they wanted to do it, no one in the AFL said, "Listen, we don't want to go that far. No, we're not going to have it, changed on TV or anything like that, because no one's got the balls to make a statement like that to the club and say, no, we're not going to do that because we're too afraid to offend, right? So
look,
they let it happen. And this is the problem. If you say no, you get labelled, right? If you say no, you get labelled. If you say yes, no one complains.
I think Vince, you
sat up very uncomfortably with me. I'm sorry.
Without disagreeing with you, I will make you think a little bit, maybe, and
you always do that, Steve.
and suggest that there are two possible reasons these songs would change, names would change, etc. One, obviously the clubs are thinking about new ways to engage, new ways to put the message out there, to fans and to get themselves aligned from that perspective.
Yep.
And secondly, the clubs have what they call a reconciliation action plan or a RAP. Now, that is where they engage with the local groups, Indigenous groups and players and past players and current players and so forth, and talk about what they can do to potentially mend or build bridges, or however you want to say it, right? So maybe changing the name came from that. Maybe it came from the marketing team to think, hey, when people hear that the name's changed, isn't that going to sound great? That's going to be a point of difference. It'll get publicity. And then the Guernsey sales is the other part to it, and the opportunity for that to occur as well. So look, is it purely, my opinion, is it purely for the reasons that, as pure as the driven snow, for what they think it's for? Look, it's a business football. It's coming from a good place, maybe, but is there financial element to
so
it,
there are
absolutely.
people behind the scenes saying, okay, so if this is going to happen, how can we take full advantage of it? How can we make money out of it? How can
I wouldn't say that. I would say, how can we best? What are some innovative ways for our club to be different? Does that sound better?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think.
I understand that, but there needs to be, in my opinion, a filter that all of these ideas should have to go through. And sometimes if it's going too far, it should be knocked on the head. And I just felt that changing the name of the club was going too far.
Well,
it's Melbourne. It's not Narn. It's Melbourne. That's how we all understand it.
And do you know what, Vince? Do you know what, Vince?
Have called it for 150 years or whatever it's been.
This is a very long bow I'm going to draw. But that M&M Guernsey and the Lance Armstrong Guernsey that Carlton wore, well, that is
sold, didn't we?
Sold it. Shouldn't have been done.
I agree. I don't disagree with you.
Porter Hocking changing his name to Whiskers for that game, that's unacceptable either. But, I mean, do we need to do it? To where does that start and stop, right? I mean, who allows it?
Everything in the name of the buck, yeah. But you could also argue, selling games interstate. There's another argument. And sometimes, like St Kilda, sold that game to Cairns and in the end lost the game, didn't they?
Yes.
Up there. Who did they play again? I'm trying to remember.
Port.
Port, that's right.
The cake, there was a cake of palm olive soaked the ball. Remember, no one could mark.
So if they play that game at Marvel Stadium and probably win the match, that could be the difference between top four and bottom four for St Kilda this year.
For them, but they need the money because they've got $12 million debt. But also...
so if you've got a lot of debt, then it's okay.
Well, it compromises the competition as well, because if a team gets a free leg up against another team and they're not playing on their home deck, well, that compromises it as well, doesn't it? Where does it start? Where does it stop? I don't know.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to say that COVID has been good for one thing. If it's been bad for everybody for one reason or another, there is one aspect of COVID which has been good. And I hope it has had this effect forever. And that is to get rid of any game that's played in China ever again.
Oh,
I mean, those Port Adelaide St Kilda games, or I think it might have even started with
Gold Coast Suns.
Gold Coast.
Yeah.
But it eventually became St Kilda.
The team that wore red was the team that was more well supported over there.
Oh, yeah, but seriously, forget it. We don't need to be associated with China for more than one reason. Anyway, that's I guess. Look, that's my view. If there's anyone's comments or opinions being shared online, it stops with the almighty dollar, Steve. That's why clubs sell out. That's Lana. It's hello, Lana. And by the way, happy birthday, Lana. I believe it was her. I won't mention how old she was during the week because I actually got that wrong by 10 years when I sent her a message. Dear.
Hopefully the lower mistake.
Yes, we all know you're about 24. Happy birthday, Lana. Goz, now I will rattle the cage. Steve reminds me of Kane Crones. Who's Kane Crones, Steve?
I think is it related to Kane Corns?
I don't know about that. Anyway, look, it's been another interesting show. Carlton, the roller coaster keeps going, and we're enjoying the ride. 8 wins, 2 losses after 10 rounds. Let's hope that we can go into the bye round. This is our last game before the bye against Collingwood next Sunday afternoon, 3:20 at MCG. And, boy, if we can win that, that'll be 9 wins and 2 losses. Who would have ever thought that at the end of last year, that we'd be 9-2 after 11 rounds? Well, even if it was 8-3, it's still a damn good start to the season, and it looks like we're guaranteed to play finals the way we're going. So it's now a question of will we be in the top half of the 8 or the bottom part of the 8? Hopefully, we can stay up there in that top 4. All right, Stevie, thanks again for joining us this week.
Pleasure.
And please join us again next Sunday night at 8 o'clock for another episode of Blue Sunday. See you later, everyone, and go Blues.
Go Blues.